Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This week we read Parshat Tavo. And ladies and gentlemen, this Parsha has it all. I mean, we've got the offerings of the first fruits called Bikurim, laws about corpse contamination, blessings and curses. We've got a lot to talk about, and I don't want to talk about any of those things. I want to talk about something very specific. I want to talk tonight about shoes, because like Forrest Gump says, Mama always said you could tell a lot about a person by their shoes. People like shoes. People like buying shoes. People like buying shoes and then putting them in places and then looking at them like stacks of shoes in their closet. My wife loves that. When we were looking for a house to buy here, I can't tell you the number of houses that didn't make the cut because there was not enough closet space for shoes. Some people like to buy various containers to put their shoes in and stack those around their house. You ever see the shoe rack by the entrance of the door in someone's house? People like those. Why do you take off your shoes when you go to houses in Asia? I always thought it's so probably everyone can have their shoes in a rack by the door. Shoes are great, aren't they? New shoes are great. The smell of new shoes. Mwah! It was an unspoken rule of the universe as a kid that when you got a new pair of shoes, first day that you wore them right out of the box, it was just a known fact that you could run faster than you ordinarily could. But only for one day. It was a special day. But you can't put shoes on the bed, can you? No. Mama will get you for that, especially here in Texas. You got to keep the shoes clean. You can use a little toothbrush, and then you got to put them in the dryer, and they bang around. Then comes the day, the fateful day, when the shoes are done. Dun, 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 dun. Your shoes are super gross. I remember you used to try and glue them back together. My dad used to duct tape our shoes a couple times. That was a great hit at Rancer Middle School. People loved the duct tape shoe kid. But sometimes your shoes, they get to the point of no return, and you're sad. But you get happy because you get to get new shoes. The circle of shoe life begins again. So why am I talking about shoes? Because I read something in this week's Torah portion, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Something that probably isn't very important, definitely is not important as the first fruits, the Bikurim that I was talking about. Certainly not as important as the blessings and curses. I read something about shoes in our Parsha, and this is what I read. It's from Deuteronomy chapter 29. Moses said, quote, "I led you through the wilderness 40 years, yet the clothes on your back did not wear out, nor did the shoes on your feet." And I guess that I've never thought about this before. There weren't shoe stores along the road in the desert that the Jews were wandering on. So God made sure that miraculously the shoes that they wore never gave out. And the more I think about this, the more I realize that this too is kind of like a punishment. Because imagine if you had to wear the same pair of clothes and shoes for 40 years. No laundromat. One summer when I was a poor rabbinical student, I worked at Camp Ramah, and I wore the same pair of sneakers every day. I didn't want to buy a new pair because I knew that if I wore them to camp, they would just get trashed. So I was counting down the days until I could finally get a new pair of shoes. But imagine never being able to get a new pair of shoes. Their clothes never gave out either. They wore the same outfit every day, kind of like Elmer Fudd or another cartoon character. My dad has this outfit that he wears to do yard work in, and it's gruesomely terrible. I will describe it for you now. I am sorry in advance. It is a pair of cut-off blue jeans, a black t-shirt with a pocket, white knee-high socks, and these white sneakers that are stained green from the grass that he mows. And he'll be outside working in the front yard on my parents' busy streets, and everyone can see, and high school was also a lot of fun, guys. Everybody can see my dad out there in this outfit. So imagine my dad wearing that outfit for 40 years. Green grass sneakers, never giving out. It turns out that several rabbinic commentators have talked about this concept. I'm not the only one fascinated. They're fascinated too. I pulled something up from the Talmud. I actually took time to look this up in the Gemara. It says, quote, Rabbi Yossi bar Hanina taught that the clothes that the Israelites wore did not wear out, but those that they packed in their trunks did. So, according to him, the nice Armani tuxedo that you wore to your wedding that you kept in storage, that wore out. But the yard work outfit my dad wears all the time, that was invincible. There is more rabbinic commentary. It says, quote, Rabbi Elazar asked his father-in-law, Rabbi Shimon ben Yossi, whether the Israelites had not taken with them leather garments into the wilderness, which would wear out. He replied that the clothes they wore were those with which the ministering angels had invested them at Mount Sinai, and therefore they did not get worn out. So in this theory, angels actually distributed magical, indestructible clothes to everyone who was at the base of Mount Sinai while they were receiving the Ten Commandments. This kind of reminds me of when you go to a hockey game and they have that t-shirt gun that they shoot at people in the crowd. Friends, sometimes people get obsessed with how to correlate scientific facts to works of literature. And allow me to say, and this is very important, that literature and Torah, for that matter, are not scientific. They're not meant to be scientific. But some people try to make it happen, and very rarely is it successful. Several years ago, there was a new Superman movie that came out, and all of the nerds got their Superman underwear in a knot, because during one scene of the movie, Superman had a beard. But later, he was clean shaven. And they said, this has actually happened, they said, well, technically, because Superman is indestructible, because he's bulletproof, no earthly made razor could cut his facial hair. People spent time of their lives on this argument. So I kid you not, a team of scientists took to the internet to come up with theories about how Superman, a fictional comic book character, they came up with theories about how he shaved. One guy, an actual scientist, said Superman used his laser eyes and shot a beam onto a mirror and back onto his face. Another guy said that Superman used a piece of his alien Kryptonian spaceship to make a razor. It's not science, guys. It's a comic book. Listen to Rabbi Eliezer again. He asks, did the Israelites not grow so that their shoes and clothes became too small for them? Right? Obviously, there were kids who started out small with kid clothing, and they grew up. I mean, they had to have grown. How would their clothes still continue to fit? Remember, they never wore out. Rabbi Simeon ben Yossi replied that one should not wonder at this, for when a snail grows, its shell grows with it. Bam! Science! That's like Superman with the razor, I think. New clothes and new shoes are special because they mark a transition. In the Jewish tradition, after Shloshim, mourners are allowed to finally wear new clothes. Now, Rosh Hashanah is coming up, And there's also a tradition of buying new clothes for the holiday. You can tell your husbands that, just the rabbi gave it the A-OK. It's like we're like a reptile shedding its skin. Off with the old, on with the new. We want to be a new person. We want to transition to the next thing. But why did God not want the Israelites to have new shoes or new clothes? I think it's because they had not yet reached the promised land. The transition was not yet complete. The balance of transition is a difficult thing. Friends, my prayer for us as we approach the high holidays is that we'll know when to say, let's go, and not yet. Until our hearts are in the right place, until we've reached our promised land, maybe it's not time to start afresh. The Jewish New Year approaches us, and while we want to make New Year's resolutions, I would much rather arrive in this new year the same person, but who is aware that positive changes take time. Let's focus on being the best version of ourselves next year and always. We may want to get the new clothes and the new shoes, but to quote the Shawshank Redemption, seriously, how often do you really look at a man's shoes? Shabbat Shalom.